What is going on, people? We are Tottenham TV here, back again with another big panel show. And today we are getting our conspiratorial hats on to decide what is going on at Tottenham right now. Radio silence from the hierarchy. No announcement or anything, no news about a new manager. Rumours about unrest in the boardroom. We're going to be discussing all of this today. And I couldn't think of anyone better to discuss unrest in the boardroom than Brian Daigle and Stelios in the building. How are we doing today, guys?
Good. We look like the Mitchell brothers of Levy debates, me and Stel. So, yeah, it's good that we're united for this one and looking forward to it as always, Sim.
Stel, glad to have you back on. Yeah, look, it's going to be an interesting discussion, I hope. But yeah, it's good to have you back on, Stel. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on. Slowly but surely, they are sucking the trophy euphoria out of us, and we are descending back into business as usual, which is. I actually didn't think that would be the case this time round, but there you go. Seems like that's the direction we're heading in.
And I scoured the internet to find the one person who was more Anjin than I was. And I think I found him. And I've got Jim from Oh So Spurs with me today. Last time Jim came on the show, we were batting away all these Anjouters. We were batting them away, fighting them off like a herd of zombies. But we won, Jim. We won. We live to tell the tale. How are we doing, Jim?
I'm doing very well, thanks. I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me on. And it's nice to finally meet you, Brian Stell, properly.
And likewise, Jim.
Okay, so first of all, we're going to discuss. I guess we'll discuss what's going on in the boardroom at first, because obviously, as we'll talk about, there's not much being said about the manager at the moment. There's a lot of rumours circling amongst Spurs community. Nothing substantiated. I have to say, it could all be absolute rubbish. But given that there is nothing, we're 10 days now after the season is closed. We haven't heard anything about what is going on with the manager in terms of he's staying, is he going? There's rumours from journalists saying he's been sacked, but we've had no official announcement about any sort of sacking. Other clubs are making signings left, right and centre and getting on with their business. There's Donna Cullen has stepped down from her position in the boardroom alongside, I can't remember the other person's name, but someone else as well. Collicott. There's rumours about unrest in the boardroom, Carrington coming in and shaking up a few feathers. Even some suggestions that Levy is under a bit of pressure coming to trouble with V-Knight obviously taking over as CEO. I'm going to start with Stel on this one. Do you think there's anything to these rumours? Is it just a case of them getting their ducks in a row as we go into the new season before they make a big decision on Ange Postecoglou? Or do you think with the radio silence, there's no smoke without fire when it comes to all these rumours about boardroom unrest?
So my view is that I take everything a journalist, an ITK, a source says with a pinch of salt, because for the last 2 years, what they've said, the opposite has happened, especially with transfers. So I know we enjoy the gossip and it creates content for us, but I just don't buy most of what's said. I've just realised now at Spurs, just wait and see what happens, because that's the actual truth. But with regarding the board, I'll give you my opinion, and that's all it is. It's an opinion. There's no hardcore evidence to back it up.
Well, none of us are on the board still, so everything here is going to be an opinion. Unless you're Johnny H. Unless you're Johnny H. and you have some inside sources, but none of us are Johnny H. So.
Listen, even our fellow friends with their sources, I take it with a pinch of salt as well. Look, my view is this. I think Joe Lewis is of an age where he can't keep doing this. At some point, he's going to want to cash out or pass it on to his family. And I think we're maybe in the beginning stages of that. From what I've understood, Carrington is Lewis's guy. So he's put his guy on the board. Why would he do that? I think it's a new set of eyes on things to understand maybe why the club hasn't been sold to the Qataris, why hasn't investment come in, why hasn't a naming's right deal for the stadium happened yet. Donna Cullen leaving is significant because she is Levy's number 2. So Levy's loyal allies are now beginning to disappear from the board. Vinay coming in, if that's Carrington's person, then that's another Joe Lewis person on the board. So it looks like there's definitely a reshuffle of the pack that may not necessarily be a loyal arm to Daniel Levy. That's what I think is happening right now. Why that's happening, I would say because I think Joe Lewis wants to begin stepping away from the club or passing it on to his family, who they probably want a change of direction and how the board runs. So in my view, yeah, there is something going on in the boardroom, and I think it stems from Joe Lewis, in my opinion. Where they're going to take it next, either a complete sale, a new ownership, or just a reshuffle of the pack to take Spurs in a different direction with some of the old pieces still there, I don't know. But if you're Daniel Levy and you own 30% of the club, you're not just going to let everything happen in front of you and say, yeah, that's okay. He owns 30% of the company. That's his investment. That's his assets. That's for his family to inherit one day, right? So he's going to fight for his piece. And maybe there's a bit of a disagreement between the direction and what happens next. But I think this all stems from Joe Lewis.
Mm. Yeah, Jim. Obviously, it's hard to really know what's going on behind closed doors right now in the hierarchy of this football club. But given that we haven't heard anything in terms of a decision, one way or another, from manager, I mean, do you think there is a reason for that? Do you think there is? Obviously, we have heard a lot of talk from reputable journalists saying this is going to be a summer of change at Tottenham, a lot of restructuring in the hierarchy with Vinay coming in, and obviously, we've seen Donna Cullen move on. What do you think is happening right now? But if you were to guess, behind closed doors, why are we not hearing it? Why is there so much indecision where every other club who we're looking to compete with seems to be getting a move on with plans for the new season?
Yeah, there's different theories going around, isn't there? Like, I think there's 2 or 3 main ones. One of them you hear going around a lot is, oh, the silence is because there's nothing to announce. It's business as usual. Andrew's got 2 years on a contract. That's one thing that's going around. Personally, I don't buy that. Like, there's negatives to this silence that are in different forms. One is it's not a great look on the club from a PR perspective, from its own fan base. We all find it frustrating. We want communication. So I think when it's so easy to fix by just saying in a subtle way, you could just leak something to a paper, or you could just put out a post to say, our gaffer roll on season 3. You could just get rid of it all that easily. You're consciously choosing not to do that. So that to me shows that their decision hasn't been made. And then that leads to the next question is why? Why is that? Is that because there's wider spread changes at a board level that would mean a change in stakeholders who were involved with that decision of the manager, and therefore you've got a conflict of decisions? So for all we don't know which side which person's on, but we know that Daniel Levy's example is one of the most important decision makers, or one of the most influential decision makers on who the next manager is, as an example. But he's not the only one, and we don't know, is he there saying we've got to keep this guy? It's my call. I'm the chairman. I want to keep him. And then the other side of the table are saying, no, we need to change all those losses, that league position. It's not sustainable. Look how important Champions League revenue is for this club. We're in this position now. We've got to build on it for someone else. Or it could be Daniel saying, I want him gone. And other people are going, you can't do that. This would be a classic own goal that we can't repeat as a football club. We don't know who's on what side of that argument, which makes it tough. But what I would say is the one thing we know for sure is there is something changing or a decision being made. And we want clarity on that soon, because people are rightly frustrated when you see another club making a signing or something like that. Now, we're not at the point of the summer where it's like, oh my gosh, we've fallen behind, we've missed out on everything. It's not late in the day. But with Spurs, I think we've seen this in previous seasons where we've justified it as exactly that. We've said, hold off, everyone. Stop getting so angry. It's only June. Then you start going, it's only July. But come on, it's not, the preseason hasn't even finished yet. It's only the start of August. I just hoping it's not a repetition of that scenario that we've seen too often. I think the club's new CEO, Vinay's, you'd hope he has an influence on this decision, because I don't think you can bring in a new CEO and undermine his first call by making it for them. A really key one like this. So he officially came onto Company's House 2 days ago. So I think it's fair to say you want to give that new CEO an official week in the building, meeting people, getting an opinion. He'll already have a view on it, but just verifying his viewpoint to making a decision. But if it stretches beyond that, I think it's a sign there's deeper things going on than just a managerial decision. Donna Cullen leaving, I think I agree with Stel, could be something like much more to it than that. But equally, it could just be our PR has probably been the weakest area of the club, I think, from a leadership perspective, we'd all agree. She heads up that area. She's one of the Enix original guards that was there when the company was worth single-digit millions, and now it's worth billions. She's probably got a significant amount of money she can walk away with. She's got the trophy thing now to kind of say, like, you know what, that's my mission complete. Got the trophy, got my retirement funds. I'm of an age where I can step away and call this a retirement. Maybe it's that, or maybe it could be the new CEO saying, who's famed for good PR, who's famed for handling relationship with the fans well, has said, I've got my own team. I know how to run this. That role is redundant to me, and that person is not what I need in here. And they've got what they needed in terms of that seat being opened up so they can bring in their own person.
Yeah, it's hard to really know what is going on, but I think the longer the silence goes on, the more the rumours are going to grow, isn't it? And it's only going to add fuel to the fire. And also, I want to pick up one thing with you, Brian, as well. Yeah. Levy going on holiday, that's the reports right now. He's the chairman of this football club, who obviously we know has a big say in terms of transfers, in terms of giving the green light and things like that. The transfer window opened on 4 days ago. Why is he going on holiday at this part of the season for a week when there's big decisions to be made, there's plans to be had, and there's, you know, potential transfers to be made in the upcoming 10 days or whatever before the Club World Cup, if there's an opportunity? Why is it? Do you buy that he's been going on holiday, or do you think that's something they're putting out? Is there something more to it?
Well, I think when you look at this, the thing that first comes to my mind about this is the January transfer window that we had with Conte when he first came. Daniel Levy flew off to the Bahamas to go meet Joe during that window when we were losing to Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final. And then that following summer was when we had the £150 million windfall, or the war chest, as it was deemed, that we didn't utilise. He's gone on holiday now, like you said, at a very, very important time, not just for transfers, but everything going on with the club. He has done this before. And obviously that January, which when he went, everyone was like, what are you doing going in the middle of a transfer window? Actually ended up further down the line with the 150 million so-called war chest. So he's done this before. He'll do it again. But what I will say is a couple of things that both Stella and Jim mentioned. The thing that's got me with Carrington is when Carrington first came in and we announced it, he was brought in as a non-executive director. That was the title. He was coming in as a non-executive. And then within months, he's actually become a huge, and he is a director now, and he is part of the board. So something has obviously changed there. These things, this looks like a major reshuffle at Spurs. Obviously, like Stell said, we've lost. Donna Cullen's gone. Connocott's gone. We have always heard these talks of takeover bids. People like myself and Stell have dreamed of them and said, please let it be. And then it's ended up being just rumours, speculation, whatever it may be. The other thing that Jim mentioned about Ange Postecoglou and there being no decision made, could it be because there is no decision to make? Which I think is a very, very true point. I know Jim said it does look terribly bad. It really does. The PR and the way it's been handling is bad, and it's bringing all this talk, whether it be with us content creators, whether it be social media, whether it be the mainstream media. The one thing that's always certain is uncertainty at Tottenham, and the lack of saying it could come out and they said, listen, Ange Postecoglou is the guy. This has always been our path, and it could be that. But again, you just don't know with this football club, and you've seen, like you said, Cullen out, and Vinay come in. Again, what Jim said with Vinay, with the fan every Arsenal fan I've spoken to have said when they've spoken about the football, they're kind of undecided whether he helped nurture what they've got now or he left and then they got that. But one thing they all say is his fan engagement and he flourishes at that. And you could say we saw that with the flags, the return of the shelf and Spurs and all the build up with Europe. But coloured out, and then you look at it now with Carrington. There's so much change, but like I said, the uncertain. The one thing that you can always be certain with at Tottenham is the uncertainty, and we're just we're sitting here waiting to see.
Yeah, and there's also suggestions with what you're talking about with Carrington. Is obviously Lewis, as Stella said, Lewis is Lewis's guy. Carrington's been put in there. Mm-hmm. Now, is there a suggestion? There's been suggestions potentially he's put in there to facilitate a takeover because, as you say, there's all these takeover talks constantly with other different people, and they're always breaking down. They're always, for some reason, we're asking for too much. Levy insists on staying on all the time. All these different things, and whatever. For one reason or other, these takeover. Obviously, look, takeover talk, I'm sure, take a while anyway. But for one reason or another, we've never really got it on the line. Stel, do you think Carrington's role potentially is to get in there, understand why these takeover talks are not following through? Is it something Levy's doing? Is Levy moving the goalpost? Is he preventing this from happening? And to maybe try and pass through that and try and maybe that's why there's talk of a power struggle where Carrington wants these takeover talks potentially to push through, whereas Levy's continually been a stumbling block potentially. That's quite conspiratorial.
You're making it sound like EastEnders.
That's what Tottenham is. Still, we are basically EastEnders.
Have you seen that documentary? Not documentary. That series called Billions.
Yes.
With the we're becoming that, aren't we?
Mm-hmm.
Carrington he's a director of Enoch as well, don't forget.
Mm-hmm.
So he's in the circle, and he's a private banker. So what a surprise, a finance person joining the board. None of us have got a clue, really. You know, it's just pure speculation. My opinion is he's a set of eyes and ears on that board as a mechanism for Joe Lewis to have a different opinion on what's going on, because he's got Joe Lewis and Levy. They must be tight. They must be close. They've got joint ventures in non-Spurs related business.
But there's suggestions still that Joe Lewis's daughter, who the company's name is in now, isn't a fan of Daniel Levy.
Yeah, I've heard this rumor a lot, but again, where do these stories come from? Who puts them out there? It could be true. It could be. I'm not dismissing. I'm just saying there's so much hearsay and speculation. You can get caught up in it. I mean, I've been caught up in this stuff in the past, and that's why I just take a little step back away and say, you know what, let's just see what happens. But Carrington definitely is Lewis's guy, and he's been put in there for a reason. I think he's there because Lewis is of an age where he now wants to either cash out or pass on business, and there isn't big investment that's come in like we've seen at Man United with Ineos, who took 25% of Man United or 30%, whatever the amount is. We haven't got stadium naming rights deals. We constantly hear about the Qataris, but nothing ever happens. So I think Joe Lewis, like if I was Joe Lewis's age, why am I holding on to Spurs? Either just officially give it to the kids, right, company's yours, or sell up. But neither's happened. So I think that's why Carrington's there, to understand what's going on or to force something to happen. That's my view on it.
Let's move on talking about the manager situation now. Obviously, as we've mentioned, we haven't really heard any update. We heard on, I think it was Sunday night, a few journalists did come out saying Tottenham have made a decision to sack Ange Postecoglou. I think it was Tavaleri and Santiago Una, who in football Twitter world is fairly reliable sources when it comes to these kind of rumours. And they are suggesting that Tottenham have made the decision to sack Ange Postecoglou. Now, we've heard nothing since then. Now we've heard Pedro Porro do an in-depth interview about how much he backs Ange Postecoglou and wants him to stay. We've heard rumours about Christian Romero saying if Ange leaves, he's going to ask to leave. Obviously, I think we've been doing a series of polls, and whatever you want to look into them, the polls we've been doing, having tens of thousands of votes, majority seem to want Ange to stay at the moment, especially given who we've been linked with, which we'll get into in a minute. But we'll talk about Ange first. Jim, the longer this silence goes on, is it looking better or worse than Ange Postecoglou for you?
So, for me, the longer it goes on, the more it confirms to me that they are not certain on him as the head coach for next season. Because I think if it was as simple as, and this is coming from, I know people watching, haven't seen me before, like Sim, you and I, we've been quite staunchly like, let's stick with this man, let's stick with Ange, just give him 3 months into next season. But equally, I think I've always had the view that I would never call anyone crazy who disagrees with me or say they're wrong who disagrees with me on that, because when you finish in an extremely low league position like we did, there's just cause for a review of your performance. And if that happened in the industry that I work in, and I'm sure the same with any of us on here and jobs we've had now or in the past, if you massively overperform on one KPI and massively under-deliver on another, I would be I'd just come into a room at the start of the next fiscal year and they'd say, you did really well here, but I need you to clearly show me your plan for how you're going to address this big red flag over here. And I need a lot of confidence from this meeting or meetings to show how you're going to fix that and how quickly you're going to. Otherwise, we need to part ways. And I think there's been a review of some kind going on, and there's a comparison going on between Postecoglou and other options. The rumours that were going around, my understanding of that first rumour that came out that had broken news was that was not based on concrete facts. Like he's not sacked as of today. I think he would know if he was sacked as of today. But like someone said at the start, there's no smoke without fire. And there will have certainly been conversations with at least agents of other managers. There's no way. I would actually be more concerned as someone who wants Ange to stay if the club had not explored other options and spoken to agents of other managers and just hoped he'd win the final and just been like, yeah, we haven't even thought about what we were going to do actually. Oh gosh, who's the other manager going to be? So I think there's definitely been conversations. Frank is the strongest link, isn't he? In every respect. Rumours, bookies, attainable.
LinkedIn posts,
someone who's attainable. Whether you think he's right or wrong, that's completely conjecture or not conjecture, completely your opinion. So I'm not going into that right now on whether that's right or wrong. But I do think that's genuine, that we have met with and spoken to Frank. And like others have said, I think the challenge is the longer this goes on, how's it going to feel being Ange if he comes back like he is now from holiday and he goes, right, I'm ready. I just want to come back in the office. And they're like, no, come in, just wait another week before you come back in. And he does come back and it ends up someone like Frank's rejected us. And that's why he's back in his seat. It doesn't leave a great taste in your mouth, does it? That you've kind of, you've been given your job back because someone else didn't want it versus, yeah, we're committed to you. We believe in you. What resources do you need? Because I think if we do stick with Ange or we bring in whoever else, and if it's sticking with Ange, that manager needs complete and utter support from the recruitment department to succeed. And good, consistent recruitment underpins success for any football club. And it sets any manager up with a significantly better chance of success. If it's Thomas Frank, Ange Postecoglou, or Inzaghi, or whoever, if you give them a really good squad, most of those they will probably all succeed. If you give any of them a bad squad, they will probably all fail, but they'll have different levels of failure and success.
And Jim, just quickly about the fact that Tottenham have spoken to, you believe anyway, have spoken to other managers, and that's what the rumours are. A lot of fans say once that starts happening, you can't go back to the manager who is currently in charge, because once you're already talking to other managers, has that trust now been broken, and is there any repairing that relationship once you've already started talking to other managers and seeking them out, basically?
it depends on your personality, right? For me, if that happened to me, I would trust is broken. I'm applying for other jobs. Thank you very much. I'm gone. But my observation, and this is only observation, Ange could feel the same way as that. But my observation is he's the type of guy who's like, I cannot wait to prove you wrong. I can't wait to show you up. And then almost, it would almost be a dream if he did stay. He proved us everyone wrong from the league perspective and way overperformed in the league next season and won another trophy. And then made us like a gentle, his next mic drop was about the period where we were clearly interviewing other managers and he had some kind of like witty line to that and just kind of left us, feeling the club feeling a little bit red faced from that moment. I think that'd be a win we'd all like to see happen because Spurs have won a trophy and most importantly, and the club is being successful, but also, I think that'd be quite nice to see. But yeah, I do think it leaves a bit of a sour taste in anyone's. It damages the relationship in the sense that even if Ange does say he's now doing it for himself to prove others wrong, not because he'd have like a, wow, this club believes in me. And he makes this huge thing, Ange, anywhere he goes about, you believed in me, you believed in me, you believed in me to the fans. Because he's always met with a lot of doubt at the start. And I don't think he'll be able to pick up the mic if he wins the treble next year and say, they laughed and you believed in me. He'll be like, you laughed too, pointing at Daniel or something like that. But I do think it's going to cause some damage, but I do think it's going to, if he does stay, spur him on even more to guessing by his personality type.
How do you feel about it, Brian? Like the longer we're not hearing anything, is it more ominous for Ange, or do you think the fact that we haven't heard anything and also the fact that we don't have to hear an announcement, I guess, if he is staying technically, does it mean he's more likely to stay? Where's your head at with it?
My head's at, obviously, Stella and I have wavered from where we were a few weeks ago to where we stand now with this. It's actually amazing. This is how crazy it is, actually. I'm having more civilized and respectful discussions on X about this than I am when you're looking at YouTube chats and whatever. I'm actually having respectable, calm, and rational chats on Twitter. I think you look at this, I'm kind of with what Jim said and what Ben has been saying when you're with him, that if you are interviewing other managers, if interviews have taken place, it's a slap in the face, isn't it? And I hadn't even looked and thought about if, I can't remember if it was you or Jim sort of said it, if manager X has rejected us and Ange wants to keep it, because that's got to be the most sourest taste in a matter. The bond of trust has gone from the entire club, whether it's recruitment, whether it be anything. I think when we've been looking at it yesterday, I think from understanding that all the outlets were saying he's gone, he's going, he's sacked, all of a sudden the bookies did a 180, didn't they? And it was even that he's staying. And people normally say you go with the bookies are never wrong. So is he staying? I'm yet to see. I'm going to watch it later on today, this Australian documentary he brought out. And I'm going to look forward to watching that. I think that personally, he deserves to be given the start. But obviously, it's not down to what I think or what anyone else thinks. But the longer and longer this goes on, I would say I think it may be game over for him. I don't want it to be. I'd like to see him get a chance. Like Stel said, and I haven't been able to come on shows recently and be with Stel when he's doing this. People like myself and Stel that have now said, you know what, he won us a trophy and given us that moment that we've been, Stel and I can vouch for all the time, that have been on YouTube going, we want trophies, we want trophies, we want trophies. He gave us that moment. He delivered. So for that, he gave me something that no one else gave. So I was there and I came and was like, okay, he deserves the chance. Obviously, like Jim said, the 17th in the league needs to be addressed. It's unacceptable. I do believe that he should be given a chance, but the more and more uncertainty and the more the silence is going on, I just can't see how he is actually going to stay. But if he does, fine by me.
Still, do you believe do you believe there's no going back if you start talking to other managers, or is there still a pathway for Ange to believe he can get the trust of, or to believe that that relationship is still there, even if they are talking to other managers?
Yeah, so I've got a lot to say on this actually, but just to answer your question directly, Ange will decide. Ange will decide that, because when he was the manager of Australia, the national team, he had a lot of criticism, a lot of pressure came his way. He turned it around and won the Asia Cup. And then everyone got behind him, but he didn't quite have the full support of which direction to take things in from the federation. So out of nowhere, there was a press conference and he announced he's stepping down. And he just walked. He did his job and said, "You know what? If you don't want to listen to me, if you don't want to go in the direction that I believe it needs to go, or I don't have your full support. See you later." So, and that is quite a typical Mediterranean trait as well. That's not just an Ange thing. That's a lot of Mediterraneans are like that. So if he truly feels that he's going to be seventh choice and he's not really going to get the support, and they're not going to go in the direction that he feels the club needs to go in, he'll walk. He won't be here. So I think Ange will decide that, Sim. Regarding what's going on, I just find it astonishing that we're in this position again, right? I just had to bring it up to remind myself. I just want to read to you what Daniel Levy said before the Brighton game in his statement. There's one sentence. "We have now tasted success and we are determined to use this as a springboard for more." Is anyone going to jump on the springboard, or is he just going to stand there, derelict? There's nothing happening. We've got Vinay, who's come in. He's a PR wizard and he's great with the fans. They hand out some free scarves at the fan park. They hand out some free flags on the last day of the season. Oh, isn't this great interaction? Look at Vinay go. Where's Vinay now? Where's the silence is deafening. So has Vinay been levied? When we thought Vinay had levied Levy, maybe Levy's Levy Vinay. Well, he's going to be better than Donna Cullen, and for me, this is no different in terms of what really matters to us as fans. Tell us what's going on. If they're talking to Frank, I mean, that is so underwhelming. He's no different to Ange to me. That's not a progression. It's a sideways step in my view. This is a manager who's, he's good with youngsters. Yeah, he's good with working with a budget, but that's not going to progress us. We want a manager that can work with experienced players, and for us to have a bigger budget that we invest on quality. Otherwise, we won't progress. Frank's never won anything in his entire career. He hasn't proven he's a winner. The best he ever did was to get Brentford promoted, and he couldn't even win the championship. He came third, lost the playoff, and then the following year he won a playoff. So he didn't even come first or second in the championship. And in the Premier League, he's got lower budget. Yes, the wage bill's less. You can't ignore that. But he's a mid-table manager. He finishes 9th, 16th, 12th, 10th. Is that what we're going for now? Bottom 10 managers to progress us. So I look at that and I don't think Frank's a bad manager. I don't think he's a terrible appointment, but I don't see that as progression. I don't see that as this big moment now where Spurs are going to go to the next level. I see it as sustaining the existing system that only Ange has been successful in, so might as well keep Ange. I've spoken to my guys at Spurs. I've spoken to the coaches. And guys, I can tell you this. Right now, the players are very, very happy with Ange. There is no mutiny. There's no revolt against Ange. There's no anger or hate. There's a lot of love actually in the camp. It's a very, very happy camp. It might just be because of the Europa Cup win. It could be because everything Ange told them during the season came true at the end. So they've got this new level of respect and belief in their manager, which is normally how it works. When someone says to you, trust me, trust me, trust me, and at the end it happens, you know what? You kind of begin to trust them. So I think the board, the decision makers have actually got a problem here, because unless they bring in a caliber of manager that's going to keep the players excited, I think they're going to have a big problem with a lot of players. I think they're going to have an issue with a lot of players at this club that don't want Ange to leave. And at the end of the day, it's the players that deliver the results. They're the ones that play the game. So there's a lot to this. There's a lot to this. And whilst this is all going on, forget transfer conversations. You can't sign players when we don't know who the manager is. And just to top it all off, guys, technically speaking, you don't need to make an announcement if you're going to keep Ange because he's still got 2 years on his contract. But for us as fans, because of the hysteria on YouTube, podcasts, the media, so many think he should be sacked and he's going to be sacked, that not hearing anything is what's creating this. We are creating this, by the way. We are creating this situation. For all we know, the club are thinking, what's the issue with the manager? Right?
No,
I'm just saying.
I hear that, but
they don't actually.
No, they don't. They don't need to. They don't need to make an announcement. But what we're hearing from journalists and things, and all the noise, is that he's going to be sacked. Right, that he's going. So it's not us creating it; it's journalists and reports that are creating this narrative that he is going to be sacked. And I don't think anyone expects the club to go out and say to the fans, "Announcement: Ange is here for season 3." Because I think you're right. I think that's in a way that is the club admitting that they were deciding whether he should be staying here, rather than no announcement at all. But what should be happening is we should be hearing from Ali Gold or Paul O'Keefe or these journalists who have inside track in the club and get things, or Ornstein even. Tottenham have decided to stick with Ange for season 3. This should be coming out. If there was anything to it, this should be coming out behind the scenes or from journalists and reports suggesting Tottenham have decided to do it, because we all know the reports at the moment is either Tottenham haven't decided or Tottenham have decided to sack him. We haven't had any reports at all or anything that Tottenham are going to go ahead with season 3 with him. We haven't heard anything. So it's not the fans creating this, it's all the noise and media surrounding it.
There's a flip side to that. There's a flip side to that, which is why I don't listen to what these sources ever say. These same noises and same individuals in December said Ange's job is on the line. Then in January, they said Spurs won't be investing because they don't know if Ange is going to be here. Then we went and signed 3 players. Then they said, the same people, I'm just repeating what they said because there's 2 sides to this. The same people said, if Ange goes out of the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup, he's gone. How wrong are these people, right? I'm sorry, but this is the problem with modern day football clubs. We are so consumed by journalists and social media. And I guess, look, where else can we go for information, right? Where else are we going to go? Just listen to Sky Sports. They'll just tell us that they hate Tottenham because Sky Sports love hating us, except for now that we've won a trophy. But I just feel that people put out stories because that's where the emotion of fans is. And let's grab on that because we know we're going to get eyeballs and we're going to get attention. We don't know. We genuinely don't know. And I don't think the journalists know either, because all year long I got told, look, even good friends like Johnny H, and Ian Lubin, I've heard it from my sources. He's gone at the end of the month and he's still here. He's still here, man. Like, I honestly think the club, one of you said earlier on, I think it was Jim, you've done really well on your KPIs here, but you've not done well here. And sell it to us. I think that's where we're at. I think that they're just trying to get some kind of validation from Ange to be convinced to stick with him because they know the players are on Ange's side. And I think they know the fan base is split and they might face a backlash if they sack Ange as well. So I think that's where we're at with it, guys, in my opinion. I don't think any decision yet has been made on Ange. I really don't.
But the fact is, we're 10 days out of the season. How long should it be to make a decision? You know what I mean? Shouldn't it just be one board meeting? You get together. Like, why is it taking so long? Why is it taking 10 days after the season's finished to make a decision who should be a manager?
Ask good old Daniel.
That's what's running thing.
Ask Daniel.
Jim, as you spoke about, Stell gave his opinion on a potential replacement, Thomas Frank, who a lot of people have been talking about. That's the rumours at the moment that he's the front runner. There's even reports today that Brentford have put on their LinkedIn an advertisement for an assistant first team coach on their LinkedIn, which has sparked even more rumours about, is Frank on his way out, or why are they putting these adverts out? Anyway, that might be a load of guff, but what isn't is the reports that Tottenham have been talking to Thomas Frank, and he could be very much in the running or the favourite to replace Ange Postecoglou. Now, if we're living in a world, let me say, today Ange is sacked, he's gone. You know, that's now not a possibility for him to stay. Would Frank be a good appointment for you? Would he be your number one choice? Would he be a choice that you're on board with?
So yeah, there's two bits there. So firstly, you know what my preference is. It's giving Ange the start of next season. But it would, that aside, like that's probably the one piece of news based on all this conjecture and all these rumors that Spurs have had some form of Thomas Frank at some point about potentially taking over at Spurs that I feel is true. But what I think is completely guesswork is, are those conversations still going on? Were they, just meeting with his agent? Were they meeting with Frank directly? Were they just sounding things out in case the league performance continued to be poor and we crashed out the Europa League quarterfinals? And, at that point, Ange's position would have been pretty untenable, I think. So was it just preparation for that or what? We don't know. And it's gotten to a point now where, still you're talking about the quality of these rumors and stuff. Can't believe we've got to the point where screenshots of lads' WhatsApp groups are now a news source.
Yeah.
And as a joke, I DM'd myself on Twitter and just said that the reason the silence is Ange is wanting to marry Donna Cullen, and he can't do it while she's employed at Spurs. And the amount of people, and Levy's got this, he's revealed his plans to turn Spurs into basically Disneyland. The amount of people who are messaging me being like, wow, seriously, like, where's your sources? I can't believe it. I'm like, oh my gosh, not just like one or two. I'm talking tens of people and hundreds in the comments. Crazy. I couldn't believe it. I had to literally clarify it was satire this morning because I just couldn't. Anyway, so that's the level it's gotten to. But it would, like, if Frank got the job, I would say, like, I wouldn't agree with it being the right decision by the club in the sense that I don't think we should respect Ange, but I would still be like, that's not Frank's fault. I'm not going to blame Frank for that. So in my view, Thomas Frank gets 110% commitment from support from me as a fan of Tottenham Hotspur. I had the same concerns that Stel mentioned earlier. I think it was Stel you mentioned. I don't think trophies are the be-all and end-all sign of a good manager, because Roberto Di Matteo has won the Champions League, got numerous examples of that. But what I want to see from a manager is someone who has consistently hit their KPIs relative to what they were on more than one occasion. So I want to see, like, consistency of results, basically. And the odd blip's fine, And I don't think it's very hard. People want, like, Xavi's a name that a lot gets bounded around. And I think that's because he's exciting, right? It's Xavi. We all love playing him as him on FIFA or watching him in Champions League's finals. And he's a really exciting guy. But I just don't see what skills easily translate from taking the second best team in the Liga to first, even though it's a good achievement to do it, or taking the team that's won 4 of the last 5 titles in Qatar and was second to first. That's a very different proposition to taking Spurs, who finished 17th, to where we believe we should be, and that is challenging for titles and winning trophies. That's not translatable. Equally, I can see why people would say Thomas Frank, yeah, he's done a good job on a budget, but I don't necessarily want that criteria to be what we need, because I feel like, yes, we don't have the money of Man City and Real Madrid, but we do have a much better budget than Brentford, and we do have the capability to be the 3rd or 4th biggest spenders in the league. And I feel like we need someone who's got a different kind of track record that's proven as well. The one thing that Frank doesn't have in it, and it makes me a bit hesitant about him, the skills it takes to get a trophy over the line are very different to the skills it takes to consistently perform in the league. And I really want a manager who knows how to get those big games over the line, and Ange has done it for us. Whether you liked him or lumped him, I think Conte has it in him as well, and I think Mourinho has it in him. All these managers have them in them, but they have drawbacks as well. I do just fear, my gut is with Frank, even though he'd get all the backing in the world from me, and I think he's a smart guy, and we often take the blueprint of what that person is today and don't give them credit for the fact they've adapted and evolved as individuals their whole lives to get to the position they're in, and they'll continue to get better if they're given the opportunity. But I just get a vibe that if you put him in a final against Arne Slot, he just gets outdone every time. and I want a manager that just has that little thing in them where they can pull it out the bag. And I just feel like with Frank, he's the right guy. If your mission is let's get Spurs solidified back in the top 6 or 7, and you just want to make sure we're there, and you want to make sure we're going to get into the quarterfinals of cups, and with that consistent basis there, so that you can replace him then with someone who can go to the next stage. If that's the goal, fine.
Spot on.
But we have a manager who said, "I will win you a trophy," and did. And if you stick with me, I'll win even more next season. Football's this game of entertainment. I want to be entertained. I want to see this story out. And look, if we get 10 games into next season, then we're 17th. I'm not going to make excuses for Ange anymore. But we've got that opportunity within the grasp of our hands to see out this promise from someone who never fails on their promises. Come on, let me see it. Let's try it. I want to see.
Jim, can I? Look, I'm not Ange in, but I believe he deserves to start next season to prove he can change certain ways. But when you talk about entertainment, one of the biggest gripes a lot of fans have got, I'm just being subjective here. I have this issue as well. The football last season was pretty bad.
Yeah.
So this entertainment is a big thing for a lot of fans.
Yeah. And
what's
you're right.
What's your thinking on that?
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Like, I'm a season ticket holder, and it's been what I really underestimated was how much more painful it was to week in, week out see us play so poorly at home in the league. I thought in my head 17th in a trophy any day over 4th and no trophy. But I think in the context as a one-off, yes, but I would not sign up to that again. It really was.
Yeah.
It's watching yourself. I'm used to seeing Spurs lose, even when we were mid-table, like someone will probably get the actual stats, but like 4 or 5 times a season at home. To see you most weeks losing what really, really hurt. And I get there's extenuating circumstances that contributed to that, but there were also things within our control and decisions that were made within our control that made that a lot worse than it needed to be. And I don't think if we get into 10 games the next season and I'm going, yeah, but who cares if we come 12th because we're going to win the League Cup this year. I don't think I'm going to be on that, bought into that journey. It just really hurt. Even the Brighton game, we know the players were half cut when they turned up. There were pictures of them in nightclubs at 5 a.m. the day before. No one expected us to put in a great performance. But you know what? The defeat still really hurt. And it still deflated me, even though it shouldn't have. And I can't sit through that 19 times again next season, even though I really respect the manager and want him to have a shot next year. For me, he has to turn around the league form.
Agreed. And I think he knows that as well. He said it many times, the league form was unacceptable. I don't think he sits here thinking it's fine to finish 17th, but I completely agree. We need to turn that form. In terms for you, Brian, Stell picked up a point about it being a happy camp right now, and the players are very happy with Ange Postecoglou. You risk kind of derailing that if you sack him. Obviously, Frank is known for his man management, isn't he? You've seen clips of him talking to the Brentford squad and all this kind of stuff and how well they kind of take to him. Is he the kind of character for you that could very quickly get this Tottenham squad on side? Or do you think the fact that he's, as Stell said, he's not a winner, he's a bit of a mid-table manager, would that mean immediately, a bit like Nuno, he comes in with a bit of lack of respect?
I am going to completely agree with Stell in something, and I'm going to completely disagree with Stell on something. I completely agree with what you were saying about the camp. We saw it. You just had to see the celebrations at Bilbao. On you could see we were all, and I was one that was going, he's lost the dressing room. Look at this. You saw Maddison at Alkmaar when he said always the same. And it looked like there was a massive unrest within the camp, and it only ends one way when that does happen, as we've seen with Mourinho, Poch. When players start talking about the manager, it's game over. But the outpouring of support for him and love for him whether, like Stel said, that's the euphoria of winning the tournament or not. But it does look like, from what we're seeing and what we're hearing, that the players want to play for him, want to work for him, and there could be a big issue should he leave with certain stars. Where I am going to disagree with Stel, and he knows where I'm going, and a lot of people, I am such a huge advocate for Thomas Frank. I really, he was my number one pick before Ange, and he would be my number one pick as well. You look at, we've gone through this season where we've had a lot of people across all media saying if these players were better coached and better developed, we'd be higher up the league. We'd be higher up the league if a certain coach was drilling the tactics into them. If you look at the development of some of the players at Brentford, obviously, without being disrespectful to them, a much smaller club than us, that don't have the reach, the pull, the financial backing. He has developed players. You just got to look at their front line. They've had players like Ollie Watkins, Konza, that have been there, gone. They just sell, bring in, develop, carry on. I think he could develop them no end. We talk about, is it entertaining football? If people will remember at the beginning or at home, they were at one point the most informed team at home in the Premier League and were the ones that had the most goals in games. And that was he delivered on the entertainment. They've continuously had to sell players. Like, you look at it, if we look at it, we say they lost Ivan Toney. A lot of people are like, oh my God, that is huge for Brentford. I don't know if they're going to be able to deal with that. That front three was incredible. I think he could do I do agree with Stel, like, with Ange winning the trophy. Is it a sideways step? It is in stature and getting things over the line. But then you look at managers like Eddie Howe, who hadn't won anything, got relegated with Bournemouth. He was linked with us when we were getting linked with Nuno. And it was, no, he's just got relegated. He's too young. He doesn't look what he's doing at Newcastle. Pochettino, when we took him from Southampton, I think his man management is brilliant. His net spend, I know Jim was saying about the money and the spend. His net spend for his whole time in Brentford in the Premier League, they've been there 4 years, is £71 million. That's
wow, I didn't realize it was
more.
that low. That's
£6
impressive,
million more than we spent on Solanke.
That's impressive, yeah.
In one season. What I do agree with Stel with is, if Ange was to go and Thomas Frank could come in, could Thomas Frank have the pull and the power to turn your Cuti Romero's and your other people that are your Pedro Porros, who I thought, to say, do you know what, stick with me, we'll do it. I think with someone like Frank as well, if we do this and Ange does not get the opportunity, he's got to be allowed to bring his entire backroom staff if that's what he wants to do. We've seen it when it was Nagelsmann or Slot or Nuno. Nuno wasn't allowed to bring certain members. I think Brentford, what they do has come as a job lot. They're a fantastically run club. I agree with Stel that it could be a sideways step, but I think everyone's saying we need a coach. He's that and then some. He adapts within games, different formations. You see the Brentford players love him. But obviously the requirements at Tottenham to Brentford are two different worlds apart from this season. But I am a huge admirer of Thomas Frank. And if he was to come in, if we were to part ways, I would be absolutely over the moon that Thomas Frank came in. I think we're looking at it now saying, oh, he's only managed at Brentford. And that's where we become right now. We've got to realise, Stel was saying, and Jim was saying, Thomas Frank might get you into the top 6 and quarterfinals. We've got to look at it now. Whoever comes in at Tottenham Hotspur, should the managers go, even if Ange stays, our expectations for next season can't be, oh, we're going to get in the top 4. The top 4 are the top 4 at the moment. You got Villa and Newcastle and like challenging. They're all going to strengthen. We need to stabilise where we are and start building a platform and building. So I think Thomas Frank could do an exceptional job at Tottenham if it was him. But I do understand, like Stel said and others, it is kind of it's not the glamour upgrade that you would think of, is it?
Brian, right? You
Yeah,
see,
bro.
you know what worries me about this, right? When I say to fans, right, Ange Postecoglou got 5th, and he would have got 4th maybe if we didn't all back Man City to beat us because we were petrified of Arsenal winning the league. That was, that was box office entertainment for the whole world, that game. So then people say, oh, but that's only because Ange played 1 game a week. Thomas Frank has never had to play Europe and Premier League. He's never, ever in his career had to do that.
Neither had Poch, still. Neither had Poch.
Neither had Poch, but Pochettino had Southampton 7th, playing some of the best football in the Premier League. They were dynamite, Southampton. So, there's a lot about Frank that is unknown. There's a lot that is unknown. And when you begin to factor in the variables that he's going to have to deal with at Spurs, he's never had to deal with those variables.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I'll give him is what he's done with the money he's been given. You can't ignore that. Like, we can't ignore what a job he's done with the money he's been given.
And he loses his best players a lot, as Brian said. He does continue to lose his best players and improve.
Yeah, well, I mean, we lost Harry Kane as well. But again, he's still going to be walking into a club that's going to say, there's Timo Werner, there's Matthias Tell, there's Reguilon. And my issue with Ange in the transfers was he accepted this nonsense. Like he said, yeah, I'll have it. He should have said, no, don't give me that. But then it happened to Poch, He got Nkudu's, NG's. Other managers were given Rodons, Longleys, Vinicius's. This nonsense always happens at Spurs. Frank's going to have to deal with that as well. Has he ever had to deal with that at a football club?
Still, what I'll say to those
players that are mediocre.
What I'll say that first of all is, like I said, we've seen that Brentford scouting network, when they lose a player, they replace them and develop. So that's one up on what we do. When we lose players, it's very rare. Like I think the last one that we did, we could say, was when we lost Lloris and got Vicario. Would be the last time that we got it right, first time of asking. When you look, like you said, I will say as well, what I forgot to say in the first part was, when people keep saying to me, and I hear it a lot, Ange done the double over Brentford last season. Ange done the double over Brentford. He's had a poor... He finished 18 points ahead of us. And I think it's something like 9 or 10 places or wherever they finished. It's like, if someone said to me, would you rather do the double over West Ham or finish 10 points above them, 10 places above them and 18 points? Right, West Ham, have your 2 victories. I want to be up here. I want to be up here. Yes, it's and when you go on about the twice a week, that is a huge factor. And we just don't know. And if you look at it still, let's just say it was a Xavi. Then Xavi comes in, but then it's like, well, he hasn't got Premier League experience. And it's like when you leave university and you go for a job and it's like, well, we can't employ you because you haven't got the experience. But then when you go for other jobs, it's like, well, you haven't gone to university and got the degree. So wherever we go with this, if it is to be a new manager, it's either going to be a European manager that hasn't got the Premier League experience when people say they want Premier League experience, or it's going to be a manager that's got the Premier League experience, like a Frank, but doesn't have European pedigree, and we won't know till we find out. But I like where it's 6 and 1, half a dozen the other with it.
This comes back to what I've been saying on YouTube for the last 2 weeks. Okay. Either you want to do, not you, Brian, in general, fans, either you want to do well in the league or you want to win trophies. Which one do you want? And then the response I get is, why can't we have both? Why can't we win a trophy and finish top 6? To which my reply is, name one manager that's done that under Daniel Levy. Just name one. And then the argument collapses. So what it comes back to is, if you want to be good in the league and to win trophies, you need a complete rethink of how money is spent on transfers, the wages we pay to attract better players, to build a squad that's capable of both. Thomas Frank will not deliver both. Ange has shown so far he can't do both. Conte was really good league, top 4 twice before he got sacked. Trophies, we were a disaster with Conte. We're an absolute mess. Losing to Sheffield, losing to Middlesbrough. Mourinho, we weren't doing that great in the league. And he was crashing out cups. The one time he got to a cup final, people say he was sacked because he was doing so badly in the league, and he prioritised winning the Carabao Cup over a top 4 finish. So I don't think fans can have what they truly want at this club unless the board changes the way it behaves. And prove me wrong, guys. You know, is there an argument?
I did look this up the other day, and that's like this still similar to what you're saying. So if you look at which teams knocked Spurs out of cups over our last 5 managers, Conte was knocked out by FC Mura, Milan, Middlesbrough, Sheffield United, and Nottingham Forest, and that was a Forest that they're not today's Forest, right? Jose was knocked out by Norwich, Zagreb, and Everton. Poch was knocked out by some good sides in Chelsea and Liverpool, but he was also knocked out by Palace when they were in the relegation zone twice. Leverkusen, Ghent, Fiorentina, Leicester, Colchester, and West Ham. And Mason's the only one who really holds his own in here because he was, and Postecoglou actually, because Postecoglou was knocked out by City, Villa, and Liverpool, and Fulham, which there's no, apart from Fulham, there's no real red flags there, but he's prioritised those cups over the league, and it's one or the other, right? Like we were saying there, in these cases, it's been Mason, the anomaly with only Man City, but you know, we know why he was managing that game and he lost it. It does feel like, even when you look at the Liverpool, when they won the title prior to this season, they dumped them. If I remember correctly, they went out the FA Cup and League Cup in the first rounds.
Well, Plymouth,
Arsenal,
they lost to Plymouth in the FA Cup.
Even this time, yeah. And it was similar with Arsenal when they went all the way with City and solely did it. They went out the FA Cup and League Cup in the first 2 rounds of each of those competitions. And I feel like it's a different skill set. It's really hard skill set and balance of, well, ultimately it comes down to having a really good deep squad, doesn't it? To compete on those multiple fronts.
Yes.
People say always play your best team. I'm sorry, if you always play your best team in the FA Cup, League Cup, Europe and the league, you end up with half your team injured like we had this season. And we don't want a repeat of that. You need to be in a situation where you've got 25 players in that squad who are all capable, really good footballers, basically. And what Spurs have always had, I think this has come from planning issues, not looking ahead enough as well at times, is our club-grown and homegrown slots in those squads. So the 8 players that take up those spots have typically been dead rubber positions. Like, you can't get away with having Austin, Whiteman, and then 2 or 3 academy players, ex-academy players we're seeing for the first time ever midway through that season. You need those, at least 5 of those 8 players to be pretty good. So I get why we're doing this youth model and trying to get enough players in that we can afford to bulk that squad out. But like you said, like, you also need a manager who's got to manage that 25 players, not manage 15, and manage those 25 really well over the course of the season. But having heard your bit, Brian, on Frank, I think we could do a lot worse than Thomas Frank, is what I would say. But I can also see why some people would say we could also do a bit better. But I think he is one that certainly wouldn't be, he certainly has done enough in his career, I think, to say, I'm good enough to have a shot at a club like Spurs. But I think see also why some fans would say, why do we always have to be the ones giving these managers an experiment, being the experiment for those managers? Why can't we have the manager that's almost certainly going to achieve something?
Well, we
give
them,
them
they
tools.
haven't worked.
Yeah, that's true. I still feel Conte
ownership.
could have worked if he wanted
Yes,
to be there.
Brian, I agree.
It all comes to the ownership. That's the thing about this. We have tried old managers, young managers, win now managers, super managers, if you want to call the Jose and the Contes. We've had the Martin Yoles. We've had the attacking, defensive, the counter-attacking, the pragmatic, the youth developments. When we brought Hodder, when we brought Sheringham, Payet. We've tried every single kind of combination that goes here, and we know that it doesn't last long at Spurs. And I just don't see us. Jim's right. A lot of fans are, why are we the teams that are giving them the opportunities and saying, okay, let's try our luck with this one? It's because of the reputation that we have at not spending the money properly. I can't argue that we haven't been spending money recently. We've just been spending it poorly. But we have been our own worst enemy in trying to recruit these big managers, because it ends in turmoil. So, like Jim said, if an Inzaghi had come in or a Xavi's available, I understand that you could see stature-wise as an upgrade. But I think Thomas Frank brings a lot to the table. And I think it's just because, he's the Brentford manager, that it might be a little bit put cold water poured on it.
Jim, I was just reading reports before there was a few rumours that according to some kind of ITK people who were close with Ange's agency, that he's actually had some offers for some high-profile European teams about potentially taking over if it doesn't work out at Tottenham. Do you feel like, first of all, the longer we wait, there's a possibility he actually might get snapped up by someone? And do you think, even though our league campaign has been so bad, do you think that Europa League win has kind of enhanced his reputation and that story of his career of like winning everywhere and everything? Has that now been really enhanced, or do you think it's been damaged more by the league form?
But we know his reputation's pretty strong. Even prior to joining Spurs, if we remember back, I believe it was the same, wasn't it City Football Group? The reports were that City Football Group had Postecoglou and Slot were candidates on their radar, and Liverpool were the same. It was kind of looking at Ange or Slot, and we were looking at Ange or Slot. So they definitely was seen as in the sphere of like those coaches that the gigantic clubs were considering for future roles. So I think it's logical to think that other clubs will have him on his radar, like Spurs did, like Man City did, and like Liverpool did. Whether his reputation has gone south or north based off the last 2 years at Spurs is the big question, because that weird look, if you've done polls, it's always 51% on one side and 49% on the other at the moment. And you can understand both sides of very valid arguments. It would be the most Spurs thing ever, I think, for us to deliberate over a decision and go in and go, right, we've made our call. Congratulations, you're staying. And he goes, I'm actually here to resign. I've just got a job offer for Inter Milan. And then to go and win the Champions League with them, knocking us out along the way, would be the most frustrating way for it ever to happen, wouldn't it? But I look, that, and a lot of the, should we call them like the more like people who've followed predominantly Ange over Spurs, they've followed him for his whole career, and we're a part of that journey for them. They repeatedly do kind of, we engage a lot in the comments. A lot of them are great people that provide a lot of insight into him I wasn't aware of. But their kind of general consensus among a lot of them is, we don't realize how lucky we are to have him, and he should walk away and go grab something else. And some of them are egging, like, go on, go do it, go take somewhere else and show him up, show Spurs fans up. That could well happen, but it all depends. So much of this all depends on what happens with or without Ange in the first 10 games next season. Because if we appoint Thomas Frank and win 8 of those first 10 games, everyone's going to say, well, we made the right call. Well done, Spurs. If we go into next season with Frank, Xavi, whoever, and they lose 5 of the first 10 games, everyone's going to go, what on earth were we thinking getting rid of Ange Postecoglou? And equally, we don't know if it would have been a case of Ange stays, he doesn't start well, but the new guy would have started badly as well. Or Ange, there's all that objectivity based on how the start of next season goes. My main frustration at the moment is we are reducing the chances of success for the beginning of next season with this silence and delays going back to the start. And I think we need to show some true, strong leadership and conviction right now and just commit to something, because if it's this hard to make a decision, the decision is not that clear cut. So let's stop splitting hairs. Let's commit to it, crack on with it. And whoever that manager is, they get the fan base's full and utter support, the board's full and utter support to build a squad they believe they need to challenge this next season. And we give them our heart and soul into the first start of next season in those stands. And I would say, I do think, our away fans in particular endured a lot of pain last season, but they stuck through most of that pain brilliantly, and we just need to say, like, come on, let's give this one more chance to continue that.
So, what's quite frustrating as well, not frustrating, but an interesting point to raise is, obviously a lot of people are saying that Ange in, but if he has 10 bad games, right, he's gone and we got to change manager, right? That's what a lot of people are saying. But
Yeah.
are we not in danger as well of falling into maybe the trap of what United have fallen in terms of, if let's say we make a change to Frank, and we know he's a project manager, he's very much a manager who might need time to bed in or whatever to implement, and let's say he has a start like Nuno has, we're kind of forced to stick with it, aren't we? We're kind of forced to see it out because we've just changed it, and it's like we can't change it very, very quickly, even though when it's not working immediately. But then but because we just won a trophy, I think fans are not in the mood for another patient rebuild. They want to kind of build on that trophy win and see if we can lead us to more success. So kind of are people kind of missing that element as well, in the sense that there is a good chance that if we replace the manager, a lot of managers do need time here, and it's not going to immediately just hit the ground running. But if he doesn't, like, we're forced to stick with that, aren't we?
Well, it kind of goes back to what Jim said, which was a little bit of wishful thinking, where he talks about just make a decision, go with it, and we'll all get behind it. This fan base is not going to get behind whatever decision you make. Not a chance in hell. If they keep Ange, you're going to go to next season with fans wanting him to fail because it means he gets sacked. I guarantee there's going to be a significant number of fans that are going to want him to fail. If he is sacked and a new manager comes in the next couple of weeks, there's going to be an element of fans that say, sod this. And they're going to toe the line with what you said, Sim. Here we go. Another project, another rebuild. We were told that this was the project, and we were told that Levy had made mistakes in the past, and those mistakes no longer exist. We've got Munn, we've got Land, we've got Ange. This is the new project. Lies. It was all lies. Here we go again. So whatever happens, there's going to be a split in the fan base. The only way I think you get all the fans on board, or a lot more than any other way, and the only way that you give Ange a genuine opportunity to prove that he can be more adaptable and get better results consistently in the league whilst juggling Europe and domestic cups, or even the next manager, the same will apply, is go and sign some quality players so this squad has got every chance it has. And that is out of the manager's hands. We desperately need a quality defensive mid. We desperately need a prolific goal scorer, or at least two flamboyant, exciting, wide attackers that get you goals. We desperately need another creative option when Maddison's injured. And we probably need another good quality defender. Whether it's a centre-back or wing-back, I don't know, but we probably need one. Go and get those 4 really good players, and we're not talking about these random names we've not heard of. Go and get an Eze. Go and get an Mbeumo, a Mitoma. Go and get names that we know. Paulinho, who isn't really playing for Bayern Munich, who we know is a proven defensive mid when he was at Fulham in the Premier League. Go and get these players, and I think you'll have a fan base that says, do you know what? All right, come on then, Ange. Show us what you've got. You've got some players now. And I think fans will give it some time. Or even if the new manager comes in, if he's given those players, they'll say, do you know what? I'm actually quite excited by this. We've got a manager that isn't too bad, and he's got some good players as well. The transfer window for me will be the decider of where fans position themselves next season. Otherwise, Jim, Brian, Sim, audience, it's going to be divided as soon as the first whistle blows for the new season. We're going to be where we've always been as Spurs fans. That's what I predict will happen with it, guys.
I think the other thing, just to add to that, what Stel says, well, especially when it comes to the transfer window, is this is where more uncertainty is being held. Is Paratici coming in? Is this court case in Milan or in Italy going to drag on and delay that? Because I honestly think if you turn around and say, right, Ange is staying and it's working with Fabio Paratici and he'll be bringing in the players, I think we'll have a lot more confidence that he's going to bring in players that are capable to assist Ange and be able to battle on 4 fronts, or at least better. If it's another manager, is it Paratici that's going to be spearheading the recruitment? Because I would feel a lot more. I think we'd all feel a lot more comfortable knowing that it is Paratici spending the money and not and with Vinay rather than Munn and Lange. It's not been good enough. And as I said when I was speaking to you yesterday, Simon, and it harbours onto what both Jim and Stel were saying about recruitment. I said it to you yesterday. we keep building for every season we build the team for tomorrow. 2 years time, we're going to be fine. We're going to be fine. Look at us go. Every time whilst we're doing this and building the team for tomorrow, our rivals are building the team for today. They're not worried about 2 years down the line. They're like, right, how do we improve this season? We need to do this, this, and this. Whereas we go, oh yeah, wait a minute, in 2 years' time, these players will come through. We've got to start building for today and not for tomorrow.
I think that's like, yeah, it's fair. It's like one of those things where I feel like we always try to take the sensible option of let's have a 5-year plan here. But so much changes in football so quickly, you do need to have an element of, well, what's my one? And I've got to get the balance right. It can't be a 5-year plan. It's got to be, you've got to plan for the future. Otherwise you get these club grown and homegrown issues and everything else. But you do need a little bit of also, what can we do to maximize our opportunity to potentially win a trophy on the side during that, or two during that process, not when we get to the end of it necessarily. Because what we always find is something changes, be that a state buying a football club, a new financial regulation, a player at another club just turning world class and leapfrogging us. All these variables keep happening. Oh, no, my camera's just over here. There. I'll be back in a sec on the screen. Yeah, I'll just switch camera. But yeah, we need to do a little bit more of now work, I think, moving forward.
Which is what we see a lot of right now with United signing Cunha and Mbeumo. They're not waiting around. You see Chelsea getting Delap, and they're in talks with Mike Maignan at the moment. City are reinforcing with what's his name, Ryan Cherky, and who else did they sign? And other players. Arsenal getting Zubamendi. They're in talks with Sesko or Gyökeres. Every single club seems to be making serious moves, not for the future, for right now. Players that can immediately improve their first team, and yet not only are we're not making any signings at the moment, but the ones we're most heavily linked with is Tell, who. Look, I'm a fan of Tell. I think he could be a good player, but nothing to suggest he's going to be as good as right now next season. He's going to hit the ground running. Tyler Dibling's one heavily linked again, another 18-year-old who's obviously again talented, but we need more players like an Mbeumo and a Cunha who was proven can come in and really do the job. Obviously, I think everyone's clamoring for Eze. He's one who I think if we don't get Eze through like in signing this season, I mean, if you look at players not at top 6 clubs in the Premier League who we really believe can improve us in these, like, especially offensive positions, they really are drying up, aren't they? And like there's Eze, like who else is there really? Maybe Wissa, you're thinking. Obviously got a lot of goals, but I mean, one of the appeals of getting Frank was maybe he could bring Mbeumo with him, but that doesn't look like it's going to happen.
We do have a challenge. Oh, sorry, Stel, you go, mate. I think you're about to say something.
No, I was just going to say, whenever we ever hired a manager and he's actually brought a player from the club he came from.
Yeah, it's a good point. Can't think of too many. Go on, Jim.
It is a challenge though for us as well. I feel like where Spurs are in the pecking order is such an awkward spot to be. You're more powerful and bigger than your generic mid-table club. You've grown ahead of an Aston Villa. You've grown ahead of an Everton and all those clubs that are around us. How many years ago? But we're not. But equally, we know we're not as strong as a Man City or a Liverpool to compete with them, reputation-wise or revenue-wise. So when we go to, I think when you're this is why I think the manager's talent ID doesn't transfer well from a Barcelona or a Real Madrid to a Spurs, is because it's very different when you go, right, I need a number 6. Who are the best 3 6s in the world? Any of those not already playing for Madrid? Yeah, I'll have that one. Thanks, done. Even if I fart in their direction, they will hand in a transfer request to meet with me because I am Real Madrid, Liverpool, Man City. When it's Spurs, it's kind of like my agent's just going to quickly check in with Liverpool, Man City, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, PSG. If they don't want me and they're sure, and they might even ask me to hang around for a year just to check, yeah, I'll come to you guys. And you could argue that is because we've built a reputation ourselves, or you could argue that it's just where we are in a pecking order, whatever it is, that's your personal view. But it does make building a squad for the now. You have to think be a little bit smarter as Spurs, because like when you look as well, I think we all know we've got an opportunity to turn what many perceive as a negative into a positive, and that is our wage bill being low versus revenue. Well, that says great opportunity now, especially if we are, and rumours are true, Son or Romero ends up leaving. even more room. You've got opportunity to raise that wage bill by 10 to 15%. Let's build on that. Let's use that. What an opportunity we have to add more players to our roster that other clubs can't fit in, which is great. But also, you can't look too much at the wages in the sense that our highest earner, I think, was Timo Werner, and our lowest earner was Lucas Bergvall last season. So you can get the gems, but I don't think you should become overly fixated on the gems. So I think you've got to find that balance this year of like, yeah, can we get 2 or 3 Solanke level players that you have to overpay for them a bit, but let's continue that, trying to find a Bergvall, trying to find an Archie Gray in the background, but just don't go anywhere near as extreme as we did last year, where we ended up with 4 of one and 1 of the other.
Jim, can I ask you a question on this, right? When we say, keep looking for these young kids and, we've got to be a bit smarter than the other clubs. When I hear this conversation, I ask myself, what was the point of building this £1 billion stadium? What was the point of it if we're not going to start just focusing on experience, proven quality, if we're still going to try and behave how we did pre-stadium build?
Well, the stadium build, from my understanding, was to be able to improve total expenditure for the football club and drive the football club into a more powerful and successful position. That's what the line we were sold. It was the revenue from this is going to translate into the ability to spend more money on footballers. And the net total spend has risen. It's up to about 120 million net per season. I think it's the average since it's opened, and it was significantly lower before. But I believe it's also an opportunity to say, when you come look around Tottenham or you look at Tottenham on TV, they're not a mid-table Premier League club represented by a chicken. They are the mighty Tottenham Hotspur. Look at the gravitas of this football club. You can come here and you can win things at this club too. Like that. That's how I kind of hoped it would also translate. So I think you have to be more ambitious.
Better players. We were signing better players before the new stadium.
Was it from better? Sorry. So give me an example of what you mean, like of a player pre-stadium, like a Rafael van der Vaart type, you mean, or
Eriksen, van der Vaart, Dembele,
Vertonghen, those kind of guys. But my understanding then, they were players
Berbatov.
Berbatov and other. But those weren't players, I think, that were top of the tree, really established, smashing it, were they? They were very well scouted footballers in most of those cases from different leagues. Like Modric was playing in Croatia, Vertonghen was playing in the Eredivisie, Dembele was Fulham, wasn't he?
We're trying to do the same thing now, aren't we? We're trying to find really good players below the radar. For example, your Van der Vens, your Lucas Bergvalls. I just don't see how this new stadium has resulted in us behaving differently. Yes, we're spending more money, but the way we spend it is no different.
Well,
we're not pushing the boat out there where we're saying, you know what, we will go and sign that player from that 7th place team in the Premier League, or we will go and sign that player from a top 4 club in the Premier League who's on the bench, because we've now got the money to do it. I don't think we're utilising this stadium to its true capability in the transfer market.
Well, we're absolutely not. No, I'm fully with you. I think 2 things have happened simultaneously in the 2 or 3 years building up to the stadium and since it's opened. Well, actually, just using the stadium's opened onwards, I think our spending's gone up and our recruitment has nosedived in terms of quality.
Right.
So I think we're like most of us would all say, like you can't hide from the numbers. Spurs are spending the more money since it opened. Whether that's enough or whatever, I think that's a whole nother pod or episode for us to dive into, because there's so many ways you can look at that. But the quality we've obtained on average is infinitely worse. And if you track back to actually when it started to go downhill, I was thinking back, when did it? Because when Poch's first year and before, and the 3 years before, we signed Lloris, Dembele, Vertonghen, Alderweireld, Son, Dele Alli, Moussa Dembele, and Harry Kane came through our academy. That was the core to our success.
Eriksen as well.
As well. Wow. Yeah. Kyle Walker, like insane.
Trippier to that.
Trippier. Then, if I remember correctly, about a year into Poch's tenure, maybe less, we ripped up that model, that recruitment model, and we went into this new phase, whatever this new model has been. And ever since then, we've signed over 50 players. Not many have really broken through and upgraded the first team. And that partly led to stagnation of Poch's squad, as did a year of no transfers, as did mid-table transfer budgets, etc., etc. But still, we were still finding a way of being competitive on a mid-table budget before, and we just completely we just blew it up the wall. And since the stadium's opened, it's like I think there's been intent to bring in a Jose and a Conte and go after someone meaningful, but we've got it so wrong. We really have. I wish we'd continued that model that we had before with this conveyor belt of Ericssons and Vertongans and Dembélés and Alderweirelds. If we continue that churn of these younger, amazing, upcoming internationals, that squad would never have stagnated, and we'd probably be talking about this being our third trophy in 17 years.
I'll add to that because there's the one transfer that I always use. I think it was the Irish Hotspur. It was the Irish Hotspur that said this, and it just shows how bad the recruitment has gone. When we sold Kyle Walker to Manchester City, we got 50 million for him. All right, Trippier was there, and Trippier. I was a fan of Trippier. I loved him as a player. I thought he was brilliant. You had Trippier there, but when you have 50 million, you've lost a key member of that back line who have been brilliant for us. Probably our best right back in the Premier League, or definitely in the Premier League era.
Yeah.
We rather than going and saying, right, we've got 50 million, let's go sort that position out. Trippier, you might be number one, or we're going to go above. We spent over £100 million to get Porro. So not only have we sold a huge profit for Walker, but replaced and lost a key part of that team. Mm-hmm. We spent over double trying to find the replacement for him with a lot of, Aurier. Spence, who was the third choice, who then became the fifth choice.
There was Matt Doherty in there.
Matt Doherty was, what's his name? Emerson. All of these. So even when we do have the money and go, right, let's go address this key area or position, buy cheap, buy XYZ amount of times. And that has really hurt. You look at it, Vertonghen, I'd say, has only been replaced with Van de Ven now.
No, I agree. Yeah, it's taken decades to replace these guys.
This is exactly. Even when we've had the money for the players, we've just shot ourselves in the foot. Rather than, it's always quantity over quality.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like with the business side of the club, we have a really the level of the planning is outstanding, and even I think on the football side, we plan on like a 5-year plan, but the transfers, it's always like a kind of panic. Who's available now? Our recruitment guy doesn't actually want to be here. He hates January transfer window. He doesn't. We've got to drag him into the office today. Like, where's the success? So we said from the start, the success of any football club is built upon consistently good recruitment and planning, and we are paying the price. This season, we paid the price, particularly of several years of not having that plan. I think up until about 2023, the planning was not there in the transfer market. It's improved since 2023, I feel. And that's now going to take years for us. And we are years into that process, but another couple of seasons until I think we've truly fixed it. And I look at Liverpool and I go, they are the model for competing with clubs that are not run like we are. And showing you can still do it and not being a million miles ahead of Spurs in terms of revenue. They are in reputation, which makes it much easier for them because we couldn't get a Salah, to sign on with us in their shoes like they did and all that stuff. But they all get a Van Dijk like at the time they did. But they still have a way of getting the balance of 2 or 3 very good academy players, 3 or 4 really good young players breaking through, spending on 1 or 2 very good senior players every year to keep it topped up and consistently doing that after year after year after year and getting them 9 out of 10 times right and just layering on top. Whereas I feel we've jerked all over the place. And
I know everyone looks back to the Alisson and Van Dijk signings they made because it was 75 million each, which was the Coutinho money. But you look at their squad now, it's full of just 35 to 50 million signings, which is obviously something we're more than capable of making. But they just very much get like McAllister was 40 million, 35 million.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Like Luis Diaz was 45 million. Gakpo was about 40 million. Gravenberch was about that. Canate.
When we spend 40 million on Archie Gray, everyone's he's generational, blah, blah, blah. And I just sit there saying, we haven't seen him play yet. Do you know what frustrates me more than anything? And it, honestly, I think I almost got to breaking point last week or even this week. I said it when I came on your show the other day, Sim. I've been so miserable supporting this club. Right, I've despised it for 5 years. From where we were with Poch and what we became, it was the absolute cesspit of football being a Spurs fan. Beaten, battered, bruised, online, offline, at work, in the gym, everywhere you go, Tottenham. And it was just awful. The whole thing was awful. And, you know, all arguing every week on YouTube. And we win the Europa Cup. And I thought, you know what? I actually love my club again. I actually love my... And I was so happy, so proud. I've been wearing a Spurs shirt. I've been running riot over Arsenal fans. They haven't got a word to say to me because they've literally just done everything they criticised us for when we had Poch. But you win nothing, but you win not. They have literally become that, and we've won a trophy. It's been fantastic. I'm really looking forward to next season. And rather than the entire conversation amongst Spurs fans being right, what are we going to do in the transfer window? Ange has said he wants experienced players, and we are in a great opportunity to build from this. Daniel Levy puts out a statement. We've now got a taste for trophies. We must build from it. So I'm thinking, you know, coming back from Spain after Bilbao, thinking, right, I can't wait to see, are we finally going to change in the transfer window? And literally, I land back in the UK, and it's civil war on the manager. Ange in, Ange out, Frank in, Frank out. Get me Inzaghi. How? It was so frustrating to come back just 2 weeks of managers' arguments and debates when really the whole conversation should be, what are we going to do about the transfer window? And Jim explained it perfectly. If you go back to the last 2 years of Poch up until now, what on earth have we been witnessing? The conversation for me should be solely around, if it is Ange or if it is Frank or if it is Glasner or whoever, they will all fail unless we get a proper transfer window and start being consistent with it. That's where the whole conversation should be as Spurs fans, in my view, not about the managers.
Agreed.
The managers are relevant.
It should be about where how we're going to spend the money and all this kind of stuff, and that's what Sushi needs help. But look, we have to wrap this up. Appreciate you guys coming on the stream. Let me just quickly read out the super chats, and then I'll wrap this up. We've got Crazy Rat, who's been glazing me in the chat. I've seen. Big up to him. He says, or them. We love you, Sim. Always delivering us the latest news. Big up. Leo with the super chat. Big up to them. Joshua says, big up, gents. I agree. Frank is not an improvement. Luke Wardle says, our club motto is today is to do. Ange has done exactly that, and this is the treatment he has got. Nicholson would be ashamed of the board. Come on, you Spurs. And Moose City, big up to Moose City with another big super chat. He says, I need to know who the manager is going to be so I can be excited about the coming season. If it's Ange, great. I need to see better performances and needs to be backed. If it's Frank, I'm warming to him more. I think he had very little and has done well. And that's absolutely right. You know, he's got the lowest wage bill, I think, or one of the lowest in the league, and consistently overperforms it. But look, guys, really, really appreciate you coming on. Really appreciate your time. Stel, go check out Tottenham on tour if you want to see, not Tottenham on tour, Tottenham away. If you want to see more of Stel, big up to you. Want to let people know what's going on Tottenham away coming up?
We're debating whether to do nothing until we find out what happens with the manager. Otherwise, it literally is rinse and repeat every episode. We're just regurgitating the same thing, same question. So we will be going live every Monday, though. That won't stop. But everything else is on hold until we find out who the manager is. Because listen, I don't know about you guys. It's drained the hell out of me. I need a break, I think.
Jim, you've got a lot. Yeah, appreciate you, Stel. Jim, thank you for coming on as well. Go and subscribe and show some love to Jim on Also Spurs. The link is in the title of the video. Go click and give him subscribe if you want to hear more from Jim. You want to say what's coming up? You've got a lot of videos coming up over the summer.
Yeah, similar to what Stel said in the sense that nothing around manager guessing. Every content we're doing is just assuming the manager for next season is Ange Postecoglou because he's our manager today, and if that changes, we will be accompanied by the qualified coaches who support our channel to kind of look at what playing styles will be and stuff. But as things stand, it's all about looking how Ange is going to set up next season and everything else. But we're also doing on Friday, we'll be recording an episode. We're doing a lot of background research on how much can Spurs spend versus where they are now based on UEFA's changes to their FFP regulations. So diving into the accounts, doing a bit of a finance special. We won't be giving an opinion on whether they should spend more, just leaving the data there for you to decide that yourselves. So yeah.
Fantastic. Go check out Oso Spurs again, and Stel as well. There's also a link in the title of the video. Brian, appreciate your time as always, my friend. Thank you for coming on. Go check out Tottenham on Tour as well if you want to see more of Brian Daigle. We want to say what's coming up on Tottenham on Tour, Brian?
Yeah, we're cheers, brother, and always pleasure being on here, and with Stel and Jim as well. It's been a pleasure. Yeah, Tottenham on Tour. We're trying to get back into the swing of things. Monday and Friday, we're definitely going live every single Monday and Friday. And as well as just talking all things Spurs, as people will know on my social media, I have a lot of fun during the transfer window playing buzzword and phrases bingo. So I'm going to start bringing that more light-hearted fun away from, like I said, I've stopped watching a lot of YouTube right now because it is just the same topic over and over again. And it's we're all looking to do some content, but it's just the same thing, and it's just boring. Spurs make the bloody decision to just put the world at rest, or the Spurs fans' world at rest, and then let's just crack on and get behind Tottenham Hotspur.
Let's hope we hear a decision for all our sakes in the coming days. But big up to all of you. Thank you for your time, and thank you to the chat and everyone supporting the stream. Big up to everyone currently watching. We'll see you all very, very soon. Ben will be back in the studio tomorrow. So like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.